Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond Funding. Today we're incredibly privileged to be joined by Katie Mobbs and Amanda Say from the charity Through the Roof, which is working to change the lives of disabled people all over the world. We're lucky enough to be supporting their project in the UK, which is helping churches to become more inclusive in every sense of the word. So, Katie and Amanda, it's absolutely lovely to have you on the podcast. I was wondering if we could start by talking a bit about yourselves and also your roles at Through the Roof.
So my name's Katie. I am the Roof Breaker team leader and coordinator for Wales, the West and South West of England. Our Roof Breaker project, which we'll probably talk about more, is a collective of volunteers who are disability champions in their churches and ministries across the UK. So we currently have about 650 roof breakers across the whole of the UK, and we're really hoping for this to grow and really grateful to the Benefact Trust for enabling us to scale up our efforts to reach more churches. That's me.
My name's Amanda, and I'm one of the roof breakers. So I'm a volunteer, I'm a disability champion in my church. I'm in the Salvation Army, and I'm involved in everything. I'm also the church secretary as well, so I can always make sure disability is on the agenda, which is great. But I feel quite empowered by it because I can bring it into the conversation for everything we do, from before somebody even gets to the church. So from our newsletters, people can approach me with their problems and issues, and those conversations can be had. But it is embedded into the whole thing so that people can belong in a way that suits them. I like it to be led from the people and what they would like to do, so they really belong, are a part and can live out their Christian life in the fullest sense within the church. I'm also a disability champion for the Salvation Army throughout Wales, and I'm really enjoying talking about the Roof Breaker project in other churches, and my hope is that will spread. Also ecumenically as well, because I'm also secretary of Cumbraland Churches Together, so that spreads it even further, so I have opportunities to talk about being a disability champion, being a roof breaker in other churches as well. But it's a thrilling project.
I was wondering if you could shed a bit of light on, generally speaking, because I know everyone has their own experiences, but what are the challenges that disabled people face in society?
I think we could probably both speak to this. But I think, so statistically, there's about, I think it's 10.4 million disabled people in England and Wales. And from a Welsh perspective, the two local authority areas with the highest proportion of disabled people are actually in Wales. But when we look around at the church, you do wonder, like, is that reflected in our church congregations? And that is something that we like to work through with churches, of like how do we better support you to support your community. We come across a lot of attitudinal barriers, so that is a lot of I think a lot of churches think about the access, and that's a really good, the physical built environment and the access, and that's a really good place to start. But a lot of the disabled people that we speak to, more often than not, it's around an attitudinal barrier. It might be just language that is used in church. For example, if you're asked to stand up as the only way of responding, then it can potentially be excluding. We have families that have children who are neurodivergent, and that potentially there's a bit of tutting or something that goes on, if things are a bit noisier than other congregation members are used to. And also perceived barriers as well. I think yeah, I don't know quite how much detail to go into with this, but around healing as well. So different theological barriers and perspectives on things like physical healing, and all of those things can present a barrier.
As I said, Kate said, it's not just about physical access. A ramp will get me in, but if then you have coffee afterwards and I've got nowhere to put my cup, that I've immediately felt another barrier of joining in. So you go without, so you can maybe talk to somebody, or if everybody's standing in the way. And it's about having those conversations, about encouraging everybody to think about each other and their needs. And often you find something that's originally organised for somebody who's disabled actually suits everybody else as well. If you put tables around, everybody can sit down, and sometimes different conversations, longer conversations will happen because somebody's more comfortable, or just it creates that atmosphere where people want to chat. So often the simplest things can create something that's good for everybody.
Exactly.
And that creates another sense of belonging. I think belonging is a huge, and that's what you want to feel. You want to belong. And as say, it's encouraging people not to be afraid of making changes, but showing that the small steps can be hugely empowering to everybody.
And I think awareness, isn't it? It's people being aware, but also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll probably feel more comfortable if someone just asked you, what would make this easier? Can I help in any way? And not be afraid to kind of cross that barrier, as it were.
We have a bit of a recurring phrase that we use in a lot of our training and speaking to people, and it's ask and don't assume. Yes. And it's just having a culture of being accessible for people to ask, because it's a journey that everyone goes on as a whole church community, and no one's ever arrived. We're always learning from each other. But what we're really hoping and praying and trying to encourage churches to do is really come on that journey with us. We don't expect you to have arrived. We just want to support you on that journey and keep asking those questions, and create that environment so that people who want to come in are able to work with you to make it an accessible environment for them.
Definitely. And I was wondering, because we had a bit of a conversation before, how, and you touched upon it lightly, how you both have different experiences of disability. I was wondering if you could let us into a bit more about your own personal experiences and challenges that you may have faced, because it would be interesting to hear both your perspectives.
So from my perspective, I have have cerebral palsy. So yeah, I've had a disability for as long as I can remember, and I think because it is something that I've never known anything different, I think I'm more comfortable with it as part of my identity. I think probably the easiest way to explain it is I'll just outline my testimony. So I grew up in a Christian family, and I came to faith fully for myself when I was about 14, and this kind of coincided with a time in my life where I was having a lot of surgery and things that there was a particular procedure that I had, multi-level surgery, which had quite particularly high risk factors, and it could have meant that I became more disabled as a result if it had gone wrong. And just to give some context, up until that point, I'd really struggled with the identity of being disabled, of the reality of it. I'd used anything possible to kind of get away from it, academics, or just, throwing myself into absolutely anything else other than embracing the fact that I'm in a wheelchair. But then I really felt God challenged me, that he wanted to use all of me, including the disability, and that he wanted me to kind of trust him with that. And so I got baptised just before the surgery. And I remember specifically that there was a lady in our church who sent a card before the baptism, and it was like that she'd seen a picture of me walking out of the baptistry unaided, and the church I grew up in is wonderful, but at that time it wasn't the words and pictures, that wasn't very common. So we'd received this letter, and I remember she jumped up out of her pew to watch to see whether or not I walked out of the baptistry, and obviously I didn't. But I felt God speak to me in that moment in my heart that even though I wouldn't walk physically in this life, that my role with Him was to, point others in a similar position to Him, and that He would help me to walk spiritually alongside Him in a spiritual sense. So in that sense, I feel like particularly passionate that people would feel able to live a full life, because I do believe that Jesus gives us the ability to live a full life in the midst of disability as well. The healing conversation is a different one, but I think it's an important one to talk about. But I do believe that I'm where I'm meant to be, and I just want to help and empower other people to be able to walk with Jesus too.
Yeah, I guess having an acquired disability is quite different. Obviously, I grew up and I was in my mid-30s before sort of I knew a difference. So I could choose when and where. I didn't really have to think about it. I've always been quite adventurous, so I'd hop on transport to go anywhere, drive anywhere, ride my horse anywhere. It was really a life with no bounds at all, which is fantastic. Very ecumenical background. I've enjoyed going to lots of churches. I never had to think about whether I didn't have to plan. I could just turn up, and I did, and different places. Once I became disabled, all of a sudden, not able to walk, had to think about mobility equipment. Those weren't there, and I didn't drive for quite a long time because I had to change to an automatic car because mine has got worse over time. So there's been some changes in that time. Although I would say God's handed up, because it does help me understand different kinds of disabilities. If you only know the one, if I just gone straight to electric wheelchair, I've only known that one, but I actually know what it is to struggle on the stick and fall over and find it very difficult, and then crutches and manual wheelchair. So and sort of an ambulant one to start off with. So I use that now because it gives me an idea of actually somebody's stood there a long time, that's very difficult. I'm actually quite easy in the wheelchair. I've got my seat. I can be in a queue. I'm just fine. So that's changed. But it was getting used to a life where I didn't have to think. Now it's all about planning. Every journey, every time I go somewhere, will it be accessible? With the power wheelchair, they don't even go over a tiny step. So you have to think, will there be room? It's much bigger. Am I going to break everything down? I don't like going into China shops because I whiz around and break everything. But it's always been aware of that all the time. So it's a real change. But on the other hand, it's also a blessing as well. I do find that people will talk to me almost opposite what you expect. But people will, people in different situations where I think they might have been nervous, they see I'm already sat down. So I quite notice it's the different. I've used that, I've been a street pastor and a rail pastor as well. We use that because I'm non-confrontational to talk to, and that's been good. So it is the challenges and always planning, but there also are things that are really, really good. And I think I talk to more people than I ever did before.
It's lovely to have your different perspectives, and stories like really powerful, and it's lovely for you to come at it from a different angle, because I think it's just raising awareness that you can't be lumped together as, you know, one unit. You all have your different experiences. And just to take it back to the church side of things, I was reading, and I think it was something that Through the Roof had on their website actually, that around 66% of churches feel like they need more ideas on how to make their own church more inclusive. So it'd be really good to know what work Through the Roof is doing to sort of improve inclusivity in churches.
We're trying a whole range of different things. So I guess the first thing to mention would be, so we, with the Reef Breaker Network, we're looking to bring people together across different church denominations, different local areas, to share experiences, because there's such a wealth of experience from people that we have volunteering with us, that when we bring people together to talk about it, it's a real joy, because you see these kind of opportunities to work together, so the networking is a really key part of what we do. We also have, and Amanda's mentioned it already, but we have the kind of the church toolkits, which are a written resource, it's basically a one-page guide for different ministry areas that really, it's not one size fits all, but it starts a conversation about accessibility and best practice. So you can literally print it off and give it to all of your different teams within church. We have a 2-hour Zoom disability awareness workshop, which we use as it's like a guided coaching conversation, basically, that can look specifically at your church's kind of set up, and we use some case studies to work through different scenarios. We look at different models of disability, sociological models, and also the gospel perspective of how Jesus interacts with people with disability, because everything we do is anchored in the Word of God and in how Jesus interacts with disabled people. So and also it's kind of on a wider scale. We have Disability Awareness Sunday, which is due to happen on the 17th of September. And we have packs available for churches that want to raise awareness of disability in their own church and give a platform to people with disability in their church to share their experiences. And we have template sermons, videos, song choices, prayers, a whole plethora of things. I know that you've had one, it's just a good way, again, to start that conversation.
It would be interesting to know why disability inclusion is actually so pivotal to the church.
I think, really simply put, and this is the kind of Sunday school answer, but we say that disability inclusion shouldn't just be seen as an add-on or a tick box. It is actually the gospel in action. We often see quite a few parallels when we talk about the ABC journey of access to church, access to the Word of God, access to a relationship with God, and then belonging, understanding our identity in Him, understanding our identity in the family of God in church, and then finding our kind of vision and mission and ability to use our gifts. That really mirrors our kind of discipleship journey as Christians. And so really we see it as like a responsibility on all of the church family to be living out that gospel imperative in the Great Commission to reach all people and enable everyone to be involved in that mission.
Yeah, and I would, again, agree with Katie. The church can really do something unique in that, in valuing people, allowing them to explore their gifts and share them would be a very good thing to bring into the rest of the world, because I think opportunities are missed, and in where that counter and realise that we're all part of one body, that every part matters, and it's so much richer when everybody is encouraged and supported and made to feel they belong, so that their gifts can be explored and expanded.
Yeah. And Amanda, it would be great to know from your perspective the kind of practical examples of what you're putting into place in the church that you're working with.
Yes, well, we had our Disability Sunday. That was really good, because it gave an opportunity to sort of introduce myself and what it was about. And lots of conversations came after that. So it was good. So all the services on that Sunday were based on that. We used some of the resources, and it was a real opportunity to show that disability isn't something to be scared, because I think there's a lot of fear. We're not accessible. How are we going to possibly do that? But it's not. And I think that's some of the toolkits I find really, really useful, because they're written in such a way. It's not saying you haven't got, you haven't. It's about, look at what you've got. Sometimes the simplest change, that could be somebody at the door who says, is there a better place you like sitting? I don't like to sit very near the front because I've got a neck injury, so I like to sit near the back. That conversation, instead of saying, oh, sorry, I can't sit there, they've asked you, and that makes that conversation much more comfortable. So, you know, when I had the opportunity to talk then, those are the sort of things I could talk about, things that people would not have thought about. It puts it in a much more personal perspective, and people learn a lot more of that from, and I think this is one of the things about the whole Roof Breaker programme. It is bringing in personal experience. Lived experience of disability is far more powerful than just reading it. Statistics are important, and let's say the Roof Breaker, I've had lovely opportunities to join in with the training and to share, and it is great because people really listen. They ask you questions they might not be comfortable, but suddenly within that conversation stage, so those to our sessions are really, really useful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we also should have mentioned that we have the Removing Barriers audit, which is a self-audit tool, which I think, Amanda has both worked through and is also supporting other churches to work through. And it's giving a space for churches to create working groups that bring in different people with different experiences of disability and access needs, and then looking through a structured document, looking at a whole range of access within church. So it could be the built environment, but it's also looking holistically at small groups and opportunities for leadership and your communication on your website and all of those things, hopefully as a way of breaking down that task, so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. There are tools available that you can break it down and make it manageable for your context. And also I'm aware that I haven't fully explained why we say we're roof breakers. It's from the Luke 5 account in the Bible, where the paralysed man and his 4 friends are brought, go up onto a roof and lower the paralysed man into the roof so that he can encounter Jesus, and that's what we're about. We're about removing barriers to enable people to come to Jesus.
So we've talked about people perhaps being scared to approach the topic of disability. I noticed that you choose to use the word disabled people on your website. I was just wondering why you've chosen that term and what it actually means to you.
Okay, so we have chosen to mostly refer to the term disabled people because it reflects the social model of disability. And so the social model of disability, there are different sociological kind of schools of thought around disability, but we use the social model because it places the emphasis on the fact that there are barriers within society that prevent us as people from accessing society. So, for example, if I'm myself or Amanda are at the bottom of some stairs, in a public library, if the stairs weren't there, we'd be able to access it completely normally and freely. But because the stairs are there, that then creates a barrier. So it's society the social model says that the disabling factor is the barrier in society and not something that is innate or in the person themselves. That being said, everyone is very individual and everyone will have their own preferences around terminology. So we also couch that and say and caveat and say that it's really important to be led by the individual as to what they prefer. Some people would prefer person with disability because it's identity first. There's a whole range of other personal preferences, but we always just say be led by the individual.
Yeah, that's so important, all the points you've made in that. I was wondering if there's anything that you would like people to know. You've touched upon it slightly, but in terms of maybe misconceptions around disability or what it actually truly feels like to be included versus feeling excluded.
Well, and I hope this isn't too much of a flippant example, but the one thing that came to me when I saw those questions about a really good experience of being included, I'd like to share an experience of when I was a student at university, and I was in a lovely church in Cardiff, and we had a student group, and we went to the Gower Peninsula, which is a beautiful piece of coastline in South Wales, and it was great, but they realised that the retreat centre where we were staying was it was on a beach, but the beach was inaccessible to a wheelchair. And so my friends decided that it would be a good idea to get to borrow a wheelbarrow and then donate all of their pillows so that I could then sit in the wheelbarrow and be wheeled through a campsite and then down onto the beach. And I think that was probably one of the most potent sort of feelings of belonging and really because they would stop at nothing to enable me to be involved and part of the group. And really, if I can put it like this, I want more people to have their wheelbarrow moment of feeling that they belong, and for those kinds of barriers to be kind of overcome. Yeah.
I love that. And what about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I've got a fairly recent experience. I went to a conference centre and I asked if I could go and look in advance, knowing that there could be problems. And I did get there, and there was a step, so I wouldn't have actually been able to get in the building, a small one. The room that they thought was accessible, I actually couldn't get into the bathroom because I couldn't shut the door. And anyway, I had the conversation and I said, oh, I think if you did X, Y, and Z, you could change this. When I went back, they'd done all of the changes. And it was just laying some small piece of concrete so the ramp could again change the door from a door that opened to a sliding door, and also changed the allocation of rooms. And that just felt, they want me here. Yeah. And that's just such a good feeling, because when you go somewhere, this is a conference, not another conference I went to, and it was in a business hotel. I couldn't get to go and get myself a coffee because it was up a step, and the other thing was that all the toilet facilities were on a different floor, the main entrance floor, on the conference was one. And I asked, oh, why isn't it on here? Oh, we don't expect people in wheelchairs to come to conferences. And that's within the business setting. Yeah. So what's the difference between one conference centre who said, oh, we didn't realise the problem, we can change it, to one that had no intention of changing it because we were few in number. We might be few in numbers, but that doesn't feel good. You want to feel that you belong there. I suddenly felt like an outsider, and the other one I felt like I belong here. Yeah. Such a different experience.
I think the thing was that the really good example in that situation was a Christian conference centre, and I think that's where the exciting opportunity that I see is that the church can take a leading role in modelling what what good accessibility can look like. And and more and more churches that we're coming across are able to be community spaces that are welcoming the community in. So I would really advocate that people would look into that as an opportunity to serve the community. And we have a page on our website that has funding available, and Benefact is on there as well. But different grant making organisations that will make that are available to make disability related adaptions, and we have feedback that that's been helpful for people because often funding can be a barrier.
Yeah, and you both made the comment of feeling welcome, and I think that's so key, isn't it? Is it you said, Amanda, that you felt like they really wanted you there, and it must be a horrible feeling to feel like you're not actually welcome in the place that everyone else feels included. I can't imagine how that feels. Yeah. It's been honestly so great to speak to both of you. I wondered if anyone wanted to find out more about Through the Roof and potentially becoming a roof breaker themselves, where's the best place to find that information?
Well, definitely the first port of call is probably our website, which is www.throughstheroof.org. And also just to say that, us as roof breaker coordinators and the whole staff team, actually, we're very willing to have one-to-one conversations. So please do, all of our details are on the website. So please just do drop us a line. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Beyond Funding. As always, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels so you don't miss out on future episodes. And you can find out more information about Benefact Trust at benefacttrust.co.uk.